Welcome to the Phoenix podcast hosted by Marta Miner with guests who have walked through fire and emerged stronger than ever. Let their stories light up your way. Good morning. I am so excited to have you guys with us today. I have an amazing guest with us today. It's somebody who I believe is pretty much like a great example of Ashes to Love story. The reason I have this podcast is to show you guys what is possible and how you can move through difficulties in your lives through something that you think is going to break you. But in turn, it turns out it's actually the best thing that's ever happened to you, because out of that, you are starting to follow your true soul's calling. And our guest, who is Lisa Dunlap, she is going to share a story with you guys that is going to make you fall off your seat. I met Lisa a couple weeks ago at an event. It's actually called Build Your Brand Live. And I love going to that event because I meet some of the most amazing women with amazing, powerful stories. And Lisa, I just met her in the hallway, and all of a sudden we're deep in a conversation. I'm like, what? This happened to you? You need to be on my podcast. This is something worth sharing. So let me tell you a little bit about Lisa, and then I'll let her introduce herself. So Lisa is an integrative adult geriatric nurse practitioner, transformation coach, public speaker, and healer. She helps high-achieving women, nurses, nurse practitioners restore and revive, reignite their passion, and reconnect to adventure, and even build profitable online businesses so they can thrive in their lives again. Lisa had to nearly die from burnout in order to wake up and start living a life she really loved. And now she teaches other women how they don't have to actually hit rock bottom before they heal. So welcome to the podcast, Lisa. I'm so excited to have you with us.
Oh, thank you for that wonderful introduction. And it's a privilege to be here.
Thank you. Like I mentioned a few minutes ago, when I saw you in that hallway, I didn't really expect that story to come out. It was just a, hi, so what do you do? And all of a sudden, a powerful story. Tell us a little bit about, take us back to what you told me at the event, how I think COVID happened, right? And you had certain realization and how your life changed. I want you to take us deep into the thoughts and everything that was happening for you at that moment.
Yeah. And I also want to say, I think it's interesting how when we meet people, I was just drawn to your energy, right? And there's just
Mhm.
always a reason for that when
Yes,
we just decide to open up and meet people and share our stories. So it's always a nudge to listen to your intuition.
exactly. I agree. And I think when you're vibing on certain energy, you attract people with the same energy.
Hmm.
Something in there, like I'm so passionate about people's stories, and you had a story. So we're energetically on the same wavelength. So
Yeah.
boom, you match. And I think what's important is that not miss those opportunities, because we could have just said, I'm Marta, I'm Lisa, and keep going. But we went a little bit deeper, and that's when the connections happen.
Absolutely. I love that. And yeah, let me rewind. I'll just say I've been a nurse for 15 years and a nurse practitioner. So if you can imagine and the burnout buildup that we all hear about in the news, and 1/3 of nurses are feeling burnt out. And so I was one of them. And here I was in Seattle working on the front lines, as they called it, right before the pandemic hit. And had two little ones at home. That's in and of itself challenging.
A lot of challenges. Yes.
Yeah. And I was going in and out of nursing homes. I was doing hospice, which was formerly a pretty relaxing job because I could schedule my own schedule. But all of a sudden with COVID, like the anxiety went through the roof because we didn't know much. And these nursing homes were like
Mhm.
hotbeds. So I was going in and out of 6 different nursing homes a day, putting on all this PPE, and I already had anxiety. And then I didn't know I was burnt out. I already was burnt out, which puts us in this hyper vigilant fight or flight state, right? And then it was my 40th birthday, and I was trying to, and this was the high achiever in me, prove to the
Mhm.
world I could run a marathon. I'm turning 40, and I was very active, but marathons weren't my thing. And in the training, found my body wasn't allowing me. I had some issues with my legs and hamstrings to go for 26 miles. So it's okay. I'll
Mhm.
do a half of a half marathon or something, like
Okay.
13 miles. And when I was running that race right around my birthday, and this was, let me rewind a little. It was about a month or two before the pandemic hit.
Okay.
Nothing happened, but I just could not, like my back and hips just were not working right. And I finished the race and I woke up the next morning and I just could not walk. Like overnight, boom, just done. And this is got to go to work, got to take care of the kids, like do all the things. And we've all been there, right? Like
Mm.
injury, pain, slowing you down, and then this humbling situation of, okay, I can't go run a marathon. I can't go to work. What's my identity here? I
Yeah.
think so many women are caught up, especially as high achievers, in the identity of our job, of our
Yeah.
business, of I'm a marathon runner. And when those are stripped away, and then we go a month or two forward, and they really didn't have a diagnosis for my hips and back, and we're going to all these doctors. The pandemic hits, more gets stripped away, right? We're stuck at home and we can't go to the park or go to get a massage. And you're really raw in that situation of who am I without all these accolades?
100%. Can I pause you here for a second? Because I already have 1,000 questions and we didn't even get to the story yet. So when I'm listening to you, I'm very visual. So I'm imagining all of that. And you're already a mom, you're already a nurse. That's already full plate, like overfull, right? You're
Right.
already working so much. And then you add marathon. I'm like, okay, I'm not sure how many hours of the week of the day she has because I only have 24. She must have 60 because I don't know when you train for a marathon. When does all of that happen? But you're already feeling the signs that it's something is off before the pandemic even hits, which that probably caused way more, right? But you already felt it. Something is wrong. My body's not responding. Our bodies talk to us, right? So our bodies usually, I love Oprah saying when she says, first you get this pebble, it touches you a little bit, and you're like, oh, something is wrong. If you don't listen, you get a rock thrown at you, and eventually it's a boulder. So, where were you in that process? What did you feel at that time? Something is off. I'm starting to burn out. Did you connect the dots yet that you're starting to get? No, you were still pressing forward because you're the overachiever. Go for
Yeah.
it.
It's like when you're in the hamster wheel, you don't see the
You
hamster
don't
wheel.
see it. Yeah.
Like you're running in the wheel going nowhere and you can't tell. And
Mm-hmm.
even an outsider looking in might be able to tell, but you're not ready to hear it. So, no, I was just, this is how I operated. We could get into even deeper stuff, trauma, like from childhood, like fight or flight, chaos, a lot of low self-worth. So I just was used to this like state of doing, hustling, and absolutely there weren't enough hours in a day, and absolutely things suffer. So some of the things that suffered was my marriage, right? Let's be real. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of challenges, and me and my relationships with friends, even probably not that healthy. Checking off boxes, going through motions. That's what I
Mm-hmm.
was doing at work, checking off boxes, going through motions. And I remember that compassion fatigue so strong. I was a hospice nurse practitioner. Everyone's in pain, everyone is suffering. And I remember just thinking every time I go into a patient, oh man, if they tell me they're in pain again, if they
Yeah.
tell me they're complete, I just could not take it.
Mhm.
And it's almost like I was up to here with compassion. And as the journey unfolds, I'll share more, but it's because I wasn't giving myself self-compassion.
And we
And
wonder why doctors don't spend too much time with you and all of that. But just imagine them as real human beings. They are already at capacity. And then they come in to see a patient after patient, which I was in medical industry as well. I was a pharmaceutical manager for a decade. So I see so many doctors and I see them as human beings. And you see these patients that just go into a doctor to want to complain and share. But as you said, you're already at such point of burnout, you can't even take any more of that, right? So the numbness almost sets in. When we operate at that high level of most doctors are just pretty much numb. They hear it so much, they have their lives full, their charts are this big, and it's like this whole thing is not working.
yeah, and I wanted just like what I thought of, I got a ping in my heart when you said that, because I was thinking about also there's a protection there. There's also, I don't want to let all of that in. I don't want to. And I'm not sure. I think some of that was unhealthy because some of that is grief, that my burnout was years of stored nurse practitioner grief that you
Hmm.
just push down and go to the next patient, push
Yeah.
down so you can go home and be a mom, push down so you can go run a marathon, but to actually feel what you're seeing. We can't just cry every single patient.
It's too much.
It's too much. And hospice is hardcore. Like in being close to death, I love that because it reminds me to live each day to the
Yeah.
fullest. Yet there was a lot going on in there. And so you're absolutely right. I'm integrative, I'm holistic, but we really get down on the medical system. It's really not the provider's fault. It's the system.
The
And
way it's built, nobody knows unless they're inside of it, watching it. They don't understand the system. It's created in a way to overwhelm everybody in the process. And it's nobody's really fault. That's just how the system works here. But I just like when I listen to your story, is like, what kind of pressure does it put on providers? And when you're talking about going through COVID at that time, I was stuck at home during COVID. I didn't have to go see anybody. For you, what you've experienced, we'll get to that probably. I can't even imagine the mental toll that it takes.
yeah, absolutely. And then you're put in a box as a patient. They start to say things like, because they couldn't find a diagnosis for this severe back hip pain. I'm like, there's got to be something, all these
Yeah.
different specialists. So then after 3 months of not finding this is, you'll love this. They go, okay, you're just a chronic pain patient now. Check a box. Nothing we can do. And it's what? And then they would prejudge me like, oh, you're just
Mm.
in here to seek pain meds. And I'm like,
Oh, wow.
no. But they just that they're preconditioned, like they see it a lot. And I just remember feeling so not heard, not seen. Someone I know called that gaslighting in the medical system, where they're just not really hearing. So anyway, here we are, the pandemic hits and I'm bouncing on and off work.
So with
And
this back pain, you go to work and you still have to live your life
I
fully. Like,
mean, it's tough, right? Like high achiever and trying, like there were moments of staying home and using my holistic tools and then it's like, how much disability do you want to take? And how much pay cut do you want? And moments where it was like, I really was, I think, on disability for a couple months, if I think about it. It's been a few years ago now. And when the pandemic was unfolding, it's just the timeline's a little off in my head because I really actually did go back out and work on the front line. So maybe there was like arcs and dips. I was starting to feel better and then it would exacerbate again. And anxiety is the word that comes to mind with the pandemic. High fear, high anxiety. You're stripping in the garage. We've heard this. We've seen it on the news. You taking the scrubs. We knew nothing about it
yeah.
then. And you're putting your kids at risk and you're starting to have those thoughts. Well, is this worth it?
Yeah.
Is it worth my health? Is it worth the paycheck? Is it worth putting my kids at risk? I'm not even seeing them and we're in a crisis. We all thought the world was ending. And then we were about to have stay-at-home orders in Seattle, like lockdown, lights out, nobody leave for 2 weeks. Some cities had this. And I got this call. My family was on our way to the mountain for a ski trip. It was our sort of last ditch. We're going to do something fun. And I was well enough to do that and take the kids skiing. And the doctor said, she was my OBGYN, and she said, can you sit down? I have some news. And my heart sank because that's not something you want to hear. And I said, well, I'm sitting, we're driving. And she said, we found this large ovarian mass. It's the size of a grapefruit. And
Wow.
it's in your left ovary. And we think we found the cause for your back and hip pain. Remember, this was a 3-month journey. And so I
Yeah.
felt a little relief, like, okay, I'm not crazy. And then I just instantly, like that tunnel vision to the 40 years prior of my life, and then 40 years I'd hoped to live, because as a hospice nurse practitioner, I know ovarian cancer is like very deadly, very quick, often the silent killer. And being someone whose mind could jump to the worst case scenario, I instantly thought, holy crap, like this could be ovarian cancer. And the doctor said, we need you to rush to the office, look at scans, blah, blah, blah. And I'll have to admit, Marta, this was one of those moments in my life. This was like that wake up. That was like my normal old self would take the path of fight or flight, turn the car around, honey, we gotta go. And I didn't know what self-compassion was yet. I really had never read about it or researched it. I just said, what do I need in this moment?
Yeah.
Do I need to go down the fight or flight stress path? Or do I need to go to this mountain, like the best place on earth with my family in the snow, having this beautiful weekend? Because whether or not I have ovarian cancer, I can enjoy this weekend. And I said to the doctor, I'm not going to come in. I'm not bleeding. My body's looking all right. I've been looking for a diagnosis for 2 or 3 months. And we went up and we had this beautiful weekend. We had the nanny, and I got my 2-year-old skiing, and I was able to go take some turns as a snowboarder. And I did have moments, I'm human,
Yeah.
of like panic on the top of this mountain, but then it really hit me crystal clear. I can't control the pandemic. I can't even control my body, which I thought
Yeah.
I could. I can control my heart and my thoughts. And that's it. That's it. That's all I can control.
Yeah. And what's, I think, amazing because nature is so powerful. There is no better place to be when you find that out because nature has a way of centering us and your true soul was speaking to you. Like, that's what I needed, that I need to be with my family. There is nothing more important than spending those precious moments with your family. So I feel like if you went rushed back to the doctor, it maybe would have had a different outcome because you wouldn't be centered. You would just be going through the motion. They'll be telling you what to do, and you would never find that little pause moment, right? Which that trip gave you that pause, right? Just tell me a little bit about how it felt because it's scary to get the diagnosis and not rush back to the doctor. But you chose, what was telling you to choose that? You said something was different. Was it an inner instinct that told you that is the right path?
Yeah, that's a really good question because I feel like when we make changes in our life, big shifts, where does it come from? What
Mhm.
is it that it was it God? Was it the universe? Was
Yeah.
it um me just really deciding I no longer wanted to play the victim in that moment? Like a lifetime of depression, anxiety, there's a lot of victim mentality. There's a
Yeah.
lot of this is happening to me, woe is me. And I just decided like, what do you want your kids to see you as? Do you
Mm.
want your kids to see you turning around, freaking out? And if
Mm.
you are dying of ovarian cancer, do you want these final days to be like that? Or do you want them to see you on the top of the mountain and having a blast and creating memories and like,
Yeah.
how do I want to feel? Because I thought to myself, I don't want to feel freaked out and fight or flight right now. I want to feel joy. I want to feel happiness. So it's this
Mm.
really interesting dance. It felt like a tightrope. Like
Mm.
on one side is like the fear, fight or flight, and it's addicting and we're used to it and it's comfortable. On the other side is this, I want to feel joy and happiness amidst what I don't know and can't control.
Mm.
And so I would say the next 2 months really unfolded like on that dance between those two emotions of like total fear, freak out, imagining it, metastasizing like
Yeah,
I'm human,
of course.
to wait a sec, okay, I'm in pain, but in this moment, what can I control? That's a mindfulness practice. Like I can control how I feel and what I think and how I act, and that's about it. And I could choose laughter and joy. And then there's a
Right.
lot of positive benefits that unfold from that, right? There's a lot of physiological things that go on when we choose that over the fight or flight.
100%. I just love that. I just love that. This is such a great example to people that face maybe something very challenging. How do I act? Do I act out of fear? Because love is opposite of fear. You can either feed love or fear. If you choose fear, we all have fears. They come in, right? But you can control a little bit and say, yes, I do have this fear, but I'm going to choose this path of love and joy. And I love that because when you chose that path, this will lead us to what happened. A lot of people don't know they have a choice. They just have fearful thoughts and they think they have to, they're like obligated to entertain them. You don't have to. You can choose to move through joy. Like, I believe in visualization in moments like that. I think visualizing yourself happy on the beach with your kids, taking trips, that's what pulls your brain out of that fearful state into what is possible. Let's believe in some kind of a possibility. And at the same time, I know for you it's double challenging because you do see those examples in other people, like people that were diagnosed and didn't have a good outcome. So it's all swirling in your head. Oh, I know better. I know that this could be the path. Yet something in you was so strong telling you, we're not going to choose that. We're choosing the joyful path, the love path. And then how
Yeah,
did that unfold for you after
yeah,
that?
I love that because I did use visualization. And so we came back from the trip, and like I said, I was human. And I would even say it was a daily choice, if not
Mhm.
5 times a
Minute
day.
by minute. Yeah.
Right? Like fear hits. It hits us, all of us. If we really look all day long, there's moments of worry and anxiety. Maybe not everyone, but I know for me, there's a lot of those moments and I have to make choices. So for me, we were stuck at home, had this mess, and doctors' offices were closing and they don't want to
Mhm.
see you. It was all locked down for COVID and save the OR and save the ER for COVID patients. And so I really couldn't get answers. So there was also this uncertainty. Am I fighting cancer, or am I just going to go in and get the surgery? And so what the first thing, I had the system that I used. Now it's a system. I didn't know it was a system then.
Yeah.
It was to surrender. Pema Chodron and all the Buddhist teachers would talk about surrender. The more you fight the reality, the more unhappy you will be, the more suffering. The reality was I have a mass. The reality was I had some pain. The reality was I didn't know anything beyond that. So why not just surrender to it?
Mhm.
Not give up, surrender, but let it
Let
be.
this process, let it be, let it open, let it show us what's going to come out of it. Surrender
Exactly.
is not giving up. I think people think that it may be like, oh, I'm resigned. It's not resignation. It's, I believe in this quote, what resists persists. What you resist persists. Like I remind myself daily of it, because a lot of times we try to fight something, but that's not going to get us through. Getting through is like what you're talking about, the surrender. It's just letting it be.
And that was for someone like me who was a high achiever, who was trying to prove worth, perfectionist. That was not my norm. But it just seemed like the best thing I could control in that moment
Mm.
was to not control, to just say, here I am. I'm at home with two toddlers. Maybe this is an opportunity I've never had because I've always worked full time since they were 10 weeks old, to be with them.
Mm.
Wow, cool. What a
Mm.
gift. Okay, sometimes the cyst was calling
Painful.
pain, was hurting. Okay. Even in that moment, I could choose to bend over and fight it, or I could say, wow, I'm in pain. Kids, I'm going to go lie down, but mommy's still here. I can talk, I can play, I can laugh. And I created, the second thing I did was reach out to a community of people in vulnerability in an email. And I said, I can't control the outcome here. But if the power of prayer and vision and thought works, let's go for it. And I told them, this could be cancer, it might not be. I want you to see me in my healed state. I want you to see me
Mm.
surfing, mothering, snowboarding, being a nurse practitioner. I didn't know I'd have a business yet. Otherwise, I would have included that. But I said, just see the healing, see me pain
Yes.
free, maybe even down to envision the cells turning healthy. And anytime that mass would talk to me in pain, and the body is our biggest tool to teach us things, I would start to get in fear. And then I'd be like, wait a sec, how do I want to feel? Oh, I want to like thank you, ovary, for working so hard. And I'm getting a
Mhm.
little woo-woo here. And I would imagine healing colors and different colors with the chakra and say, it's okay, you can heal, you can, and talk to the body. And so I would have this vision and a community of
Love
people
it.
that I was vulnerable with. And then I would really use my energy healing and mindfulness practices on myself. And that was the third thing, was a daily ritual. And that was it. I said to my husband, we're stuck at home, you're working remotely. I know I'm in charge of the kids and my healing. I was off work for sure at this point
Yeah.
and on disability. I said, but at noon every day, I'm going to get 1 hour for me. I'm going to hit that yoga mat. And
Mm.
this was also new, Marta. I did not hit the yoga mat with, I need a 6 pack of abs, which was like the former self.
Yes.
It was like the complete opposite. I hit that yoga mat every day, privately locked my room, a tiny bedroom. We're in Seattle. All you need is
Yeah.
one tiny space to free your mind.
Mhm.
It's like really true. And I'd say to myself, what is it you need in this moment, Lisa? And
Mhm.
I would be honest and I would give it. And that could be crying. That could be journaling. That could be calling my dear old friends and Zooming to connect with humans. Maybe it was yoga. Maybe it was energy healing. Maybe it was what I learned, the self-compassion practice.
Mm.
And yeah, and there's more steps, but
I
that
mean,
was the first few things I did during this sort of 8 weeks of waiting for answers.
what I love, love, love about this is that it's not during this healing journey, you change your personality because you went from the high achiever, which a lot of us operate in that mode, very masculine, high achieving, keep going, to eventually, because it wasn't your path. That's what I believe. If it's not your path, it will wake you up like a ton of bricks. And all of a sudden, you found a different version of yourself that is compassionate, that gives herself that time, an hour a day, to find out what is it that Lisa needs right now. Because who's ever asking you? Do your kids ask you, Mommy, what do you need? Does your husband? Rarely. What do you need, honey, to just be there for an hour, do whatever you need for yourself? Nobody really asks us that, especially as moms. If you don't give yourself this time, nobody's going to give you this time. But for you, it took the illness to remove yourself and say, I am going to look inward and I am going to give myself this gift. And I think that's number one part of healing, right? Is like noticing self compassion and self love. And you,
Oh my gosh, yes. And thank you for saying that new version of myself. I never really looked at it like that, but I would even call it self-soothing, which sounds so basic. My mom left when I was 9 months old. So I was literally stunted at, I don't want to say stunted, but at the emotional state of a 9 month old in a crib who didn't have anyone to self-soothe, right? Or to soothe her,
mm,
right? That's moms do that. They soothe you. Now,
yeah,
dad was there, but maybe that's more masculine. Dad wasn't the
that's
soother.
different.
So the self-soothing was gone for me. I didn't understand it, and there was no mother. And when my mom did come back 10 years later, just depression, she didn't have a lot of those like nurturing qualities. And so it was really about self-soothing. And that self-compassion practice is the fourth step in the process that I share with my clients because it's so cool to be able to give yourself what you need. Often
Yeah.
we're anxiously grabbing, oh, honey, you're not paying attention. And to your friends, you're not giving me what I need. But to really say the steps of self-compassion is like, I'm feeling anxious and afraid, and to honor that and go, it's okay. That's
Hmm.
okay. This moment's going to pass. And to breathe into it. And then to say to yourself, I'm not alone. We feel so isolated in our suffering,
Yeah.
where in the pandemic, we were all suffering, but we feel so alone and we don't want to talk about it. Um, and to just say others are feeling this, and then to say to ourselves, what are the words I need to hear? And that's the mothering the child. That's the, what do I need to hear? What did mom not give me when I was little? What can I give to me in this moment? Like, Lisa, you're going to be okay. Maybe this is your journey to have cancer, and that's okay. Or maybe you'll help others. And then I would add that part about it. What is it I need to feel nurtured every day? And that self-compassion, I believe, was probably the most transformational in my healing.
I think all of us really, like when I've been going through my healing journey for a few years, I've been going through it my entire life, but the past few years I did a lot of healing. And I realized that all of us are just little kids. Growing up, we're wearing those adult suits, but really, we're little kids that just need our moms, that need compassion, that need to be held, that need to be told you're going to be okay. And if nobody in your life is giving it to you, you have to give it to yourself or we can't thrive. Like just like babies, when they're not held when they're babies, they can't thrive. And some babies die out of lack of love. And it's the same thing as we're running as adults. We're just pretending like we have these masks of this adult person with accomplishments. But deep inside, you're still that little baby that just needs to be okay. And you've realized that you've given it to yourself. And that's what healed through the process. We'll talk about it. But I believe that was the starting the process of the healing is giving yourself. Like sometimes I do visualizations of me as a little girl and I just give myself what I didn't get in childhood. And it feels good. Your body wants that.
I love that. And yes. And so there was one more thing that I did that, and these don't have to be in any order or anything, but what
Yeah.
I tell people is make it a ritual before it's a habit. So this would happen on the yoga mat every day. Now I would say I
Mm.
integrate these into my daily life. But the five senses practice, it's so
Uh-huh.
easy. I don't need to go through it, but essentially just stepping outside in nature when you're feeling something, a trigger, a frustration, an anger and a fear, and you just engage all your senses, and you don't need to do any perfect algorithm of it,
Hmm.
but just I see the trees, I smell the flowers, I feel the grass. I would literally put my bare feet in the grass in my backyard in that pandemic because we were imprisoned, right? And
Hmm.
in a bougie prison, we had a house and we can order things on Amazon or whatever, but that grounding, when we're feeling something, that child needs to be grounded inside of us. And
Hmm.
so here we are. I was doing these daily things. It was about 8 weeks of no answers. And we finally got a cancer test back that it was not ovarian cancer.
Yes.
And they said, we still don't know if it's uterine and we need to go in for surgery and we need to get that out and find out what's causing this. And so some fear was down, but still unsure. And so they finally got an OR and I went in for surgery. And by that point, I would admit that I was feeling a lot better, a lot less
Mm,
pain, a lot less, if you want to say, not aligned. I didn't feel as rugged. I was like full, my cup was full.
mm.
But so they went in and they don't scan you, they don't re-scan you before they do surgery. So they did the surgery. And when she came out, the doctor said, I said, did you take out my ovaries like the
Mm.
plan was? And she said, no. What? She said, we didn't find anything. She said, 8 weeks ago on the scans, you had this large 11-centimeter mass
Wow.
there. We don't see an imprint. We don't see that it burst. We don't like it's gone. And
Wow.
her jaw was on the floor and she was like, I've never seen this in the literature. I've never seen it in my career. She said, I had to get 5 sets of other professional eyes in the OR looking at your scan and looking
Yeah.
at your body. And she
Wow.
said, I can't explain this, Lisa. And I looked at her with all my knowing, and she thought I was a
Yeah.
kook. And I said, I can. I said, I now know. And that's when the dots connected, Marta. I said, I've been burnt out and my body made me sick. And then I took a moment to heal from within and slow down and nurture. And I made myself well. And she rolled her eyes, and I'm like, whatever, it doesn't matter. She wasn't ready for that info.
No, and then that's one of the medical mysteries, as they call it. When people self-heal, there's no explanation for it. And because they have to have medical explanation, that's what doctors are trained to do, provide you with medical studies and all of that's all they rely on. There is no way to explain that, but I 100% believe in that because we do have self power to self heal. And because you took those steps, how amazing of an outcome. Like I have goosebumps just thinking about it because it almost seems surreal. It almost seems like, how is that even possible? But I think, I don't know, like, first of all, it saved you. That mass, whatever it was, saved you from the life that you were going to go towards. It probably wouldn't have ended really well. If it wouldn't be the cancer, it would be something else because you were on a path of a burnout. So our bodies talk to us, right? And that was your saving grace, redirection. Tell us what you did with this redirection too.
And yes, absolutely. I love that. Yeah, rejections, redirection, and that was a rejection. But it's so true what you said because guess what? Even after the mass was healed, and I started thinking, okay, I want to help women to do this. I didn't know what a
Yeah.
coach was, and I was like, oh, this is crazy. I make 150,000. We live in Seattle. I make more than half our income. I'm gonna quit, and like, how are we gonna eat? So I
Mhm.
actually went back to work, right? We don't just jump in sometimes.
No.
Guess what happened? Another body part got sick.
Ah,
Just like you said, my stomach got sick. And I don't need to tell the whole story, but just a whole nother set of diagnostics. And then it was like, it's the job. It's the profession right now. It's making me sick. I just knew it. It was
mhm.
all these things going on in my gut. And I just felt like a ball of fire that just was moving.
Just moving. Yes.
Yeah.
When
And
you're
then
gonna hear me, Lisa, I'm telling you, it's gonna keep moving until you hear the message loud and strong, right? And did you hear it the second time?
yes. And I just said to my husband, we sat by the fire and we were having this chat and we were like, wow, what a big thing I just went through, this near death. And we looked at each other and we said, we're both working more than 40 hours a week. We barely see our kids. We barely are getting by. What are we doing? Is this the life we want? And this is like
Mm.
kind of a verbal vision board we had where we just crafted, okay, let's do the same thing we did with the mass. Like, how do we want to live? What do we
Yes.
want each day to look like? How do we want to feel? What is our version of wealth? What does that look like? And we literally painted this picture. And I said, I'm quitting my job and I'm going to become, I don't even know what she's called yet, but I'm going to empower women with tools to heal, to identify what's making them feel off and sick and burnt out, and women in healthcare. And my husband didn't like that part of the vision. He was really freaked out by that. But he and I said, we want to surf every day. We miss surfing. We were surfers.
Mm.
That's our soul. That's our passion. We were like, we can't do it in Seattle. We had lived in Hawaii before together. And we were like, we want a lower cost of living. We want to be able to work less, see our kids more. And we just figured out a town that made that possible, Wilmington, North Carolina. And we just said, we're going to move there in 1 year. We didn't have a plan. I'd never
Yeah.
built a business. He didn't have a job. And I just quit my job and I was home with the kids. And I would also call that still healing. As I was
Yeah.
building the business, I was healing. And being with my children is healing.
Very much. Yeah.
And they got to be with mom, totally 100%
Hmm.
present. And 1 year later, we moved across, bought our home 15 minutes from our favorite surf beach. Here we are in Wilmington 3 years later. And we surf whenever we want. We have
Mm.
time freedom. We have time with our kids. No, we're not millionaires yet. But for me, the wealth of time, freedom, schedule freedom, the weather, the surf, like
Hmm.
that's what it's about. And being able to spend more time with my kids.
100%. Abundance comes in many forms. People think it's monetary, but the quality of life is the biggest abundance you can possibly have. You were missing your own life before, missing your kids growing up, missing your happiness, missing your surfing, missing your friendships, like a lot of stuff. Like on the surface, it looked good because it looked pretty on pictures and Christmas cards, probably. And you had a great profession. People admired all of that, right? People admire somebody in healthcare industry. It all looks good, but I don't think it felt good to you. I don't know, but I can assume because your body was like, let's throw this ball around your insides and see if you notice that this is not your life, this is not your path. And it's such a powerful story because a lot of things you talk about, people are scared to have no safety net and just jump off. But there's so many studies done on that. And I believe in faith and I believe in God. And I believe that when you also make a decision, that means show up. Like you just have to make a decision. Once you create your vision board and you say, I'm jumping off this cliff, all of a sudden parachute shows up. You don't know where it's coming from, but it is the next logical step will happen. If you listen to your body, if you listen to your soul and it's redirecting you, there is a reason for it. And the next step will open up and the next step will open up. But what do most people do? They're so scared, especially when you have a family. It's very easy to say, just jump off the cliff. But most people say, you know what, I'm going to start a business on the side. I'll just do a little bit. So then it causes even more burnout. You know what I mean? Like if
Mm,
you don't
yeah.
follow your path, you will continuously feel that down, the anxiety, the depression, all of that. And sometimes it just takes a major, awful thing, something really tragic for you to be like, sometimes I think to myself, it's not about the money. Like, I just want time with my daughter. And if I don't have the money and I don't have the house and I don't have what I want, but I have my child, am I going to be fulfilled? Yes. So stop worrying about the money. It will come as a natural progression. And I think your money will come too because you're growing. And I'm sure you're doing really well. But I think with this attitude that you have and following your dream, the next step will be even bigger because you are following your soul's calling.
You for saying that. And yes, exactly. And I love that. We have to check ourselves as entrepreneurs because we can take that same patterning of hustle and burnout and slip into that
Yeah.
again and forget our why. And then we can slip into the ego, as you mentioned, of what looks good and what's shiny. And wait, here I am on the computer and the kids are over there. I check myself every week. And you're
Hmm.
absolutely right, because there's times where I'm like, wow, I'm really burning the candle at both ends. And is this accomplishing what I want? And so I would say that's also what you mentioned is what I help my clients with, nursing their soul, because I think that's what it's about when it comes to, for me, the fear dropped a bit. I will say in my case, it felt life or death, meaning when my husband looked at me and was like, you're crazy. We will not eat. How will we live?
Hmm.
You quit this job. I said, maybe I won't be here if I keep doing this job.
Exactly. What's the
Like,
alternative? So I would
right.
rather not eat than not be here, but you will eat because
Yeah.
it always happens.
We always had before and we always would, and we would find a way, and we're resourceful. And I still work like 16 hours a week as a nurse practitioner so that I don't have that up and down with my income and my business. And that creates a little bit more steadiness. I also enjoy it when it's like that small of an amount.
Hmm.
And so I've done it. I went all in, I've gone back to work, I've done part-time. But for me, it was almost just an inner knowing, like it has to change or I will not be here. And that is exactly how I help nurses and women who feel burnt out, is like when we can reconnect to what our soul wants and needs, and then really step into what we're passionate about, whether that's a business or just a dream job or even just going salsa dancing after work.
100%.
Believe and now know that you can heal and transform and take those leaps.
And how powerful to learn from somebody like yourself. Because most of the time we learn from mentors that didn't have a big life event like that. and they just know it in theory. If that could happen, but you went through it and you nurse and your business. I just love the name of your business. It's so cute. So tell us the name of your business and who you are helping and who are your ideal clients and how can people get a hold of you and work with you, and what type of clients are you looking for? What part of the journey are they on
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
when they
I love
meet
that
you?
question. So the business is called Nurse Your Soul, and you can find it at nurseyoursoulwithlisa.com. That's the website. Or you can just follow me, my name on Facebook, Lisa Dunlap. And so I mostly work with women. I have really attracted women. And I would say that my ideal client is a lot like that Lisa 3 or 4 years ago. You know, she's like middle-aged and she's been this high achiever and she's probably got kids and she's really just feeling like the world has like squashed who she is. She's forgotten who she is, and she misses
Mhm.
having that energy and that time and doing things she loves. And a lot of the nurses that I work with are really sick of the bedside. They've done it for so long that they
Mhm.
almost forgot other identities.
Yeah.
They've done it almost, I don't want to say for the ego, but like it looks good on paper and they kept climbing the ladders and then they
Mhm.
realize they're not happy.
Mhm.
And a lot of the women that come to me are in that state of they know they're meant for more, whether
Mhm.
that's a business or a different total career change. And a lot of them also are seeking adventure, like wanting to step into something like surfing or stand-up
Mhm.
paddleboarding. And so I typically work with women one-on-one, or I have group coaching programs that I do different times of the year. I have a like Restore and Revive program for women who feel burnt out. And most women come to me and go through that first. And
Mhm.
then I have a Bedside to Abundance program that helps nurses and nurse practitioners build their own online business so that they can start to step
Mhm.
away and do
Right.
something on their own terms.
I love that. So do you only work with medical professionals, or if somebody's in corporate world and feels this, because I came from corporate and it's the exact same feeling of a burnout. Maybe you don't have as much patient connection, so that doesn't burn you as much, but the competitiveness and all of that and wanting to follow your dream, would you work with somebody from other professions as well?
Absolutely. And I love that you brought that up because I've just expanded into that in the last 6 months because
Mm-hmm.
I realized we have our niche and our ideal client. And I really could speak to nurses, but also I could speak to burnt out, high achieving moms and women in
Mm-hmm.
corporate. And I have done some burnout coaching in the corporate world, right? Not just in healthcare. And so I am expanding into working with all types of women. You know, I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna be my coolest thing that I'm working on that'll be about a year from now is a surfing through burnout retreat here in Wilmington, where women like yourself, who maybe have never, I don't know if you surf, but let's just say you haven't, and or you have, and you're not, it doesn't matter how athletic. The point is to come and embody the experience of adventure. And there'll be a little bit of coaching, a little bit of mindfulness, a little bit of journaling and embodying it and being present. Because when we're in that flow, that's when we're really getting our nervous system to baseline. We're just really
Mm-hmm.
getting back to baseline, and all humans need that. So,
Yeah.
absolutely, I work with all
And
women.
what's really funny that you bring up surfing, because this was probably the only experience I've ever had, which I did surf once in Hawaii. And that was out of body experience for a corporate burnout person. I had one of my reps who is Hawaiian took me once on just out deep in the ocean. And I don't know if there really was a shark, but they yelled at some point, shark. And I felt like my life is about to end. But that he had a little camera at the end of the surfboard and he was recording me. And he said, Marta, you looked like a little girl. You look like a 6 year old. I've never seen you like that, because he knows me from work, right? In a corporate professional job. And I reconnected with that little girl within myself. And I understood very quickly why surfers, no matter if they were break their back, their neck, whatever, they always go back, because that feeling is like nothing I've ever had. That connection with water, that feeling free and in nature, immersed in nature. There is nothing to wake you up to like your life purpose more, I think, than surfing. Because it's one thing like exercise. Exercises, some people love it, some people don't. But here you're like immersed in water and you're one with nature. I love that you're combining those two things, the burnout with that experience. because it was probably the biggest reconnection with myself I've ever had when I did that one experience. It was crazy.
Congrats for being so brave to do it. And then you did exactly what we would be doing on the retreat, is like looking at the adventure and untangling it a bit to see like how can this be a lesson for ourselves, our business.
Mm.
Surfing for me is facing my fear every day, every wave. It's
Mm-hmm.
being totally 100% present and having no control over nature
Mm-hmm.
and surrendering to that. And sometimes there's chaos. You're getting turned and churned and still finding the joy in it. It's
Yes.
also the peace of nature and just being like, there's this whole theory now about the blue mind and like how nature and water really change your chemistry. Um,
100%.
and for those that aren't as much into surfing, I also am going to offer like a stand-up paddle boarding version, because even just being on the
Being
water.
in the water, it's just something that cleanses you. It connects you with yourself, with nature. And exactly what you're saying, for a corporate person who is like perfectionist, always in charge, you can't be in charge in the water. Like you're in charge of whatever you can be in charge of. But really, if you don't go in with the flow, you probably get injured, right? If you try to do it your way, the water will tell you, I'm way more powerful than you, and you're gonna get smacked. So it is the best way to let go and surrender and just trust and allow, right? Like all these things we need to use in our lives.
Totally. All of that. And I think also just to enjoy it. We could sit
Yeah.
there and stress out in the waves about, I'm not doing it right. What do people
Yeah.
think? Oh, I'm failing. Like we haven't even talked about failure, fear of
Yeah.
failure, people like us. But like people are watching. I'm surfing, you're gonna fail 10 times before for every good wave. Even as a good surfer, you're gonna catch
Yeah.
and fall. And that's part of the journey for me too with surfing. And there's even more to it, because the journey of being a surfer is like watching the report and
Hmm.
dropping everything, because it has to be the perfect collision of the wind, the tides, the swell, and the weather.
Hmm.
And you have to have all four of those things, and that doesn't happen all the time. And so, especially here on the East Coast, to let go of control of your schedule and just say, this is a priority and this fills my cup. I'm going to set my to-do list. Everything's going to wait. That's how my husband and me live our lives. And luckily, we can support each other and watch the kids.
Hmm.
And okay, it serves good. Your turn. Because that's a very different than a calculated, scheduled
So different.
day,
Different.
right?
And you can bring those skills into your real life if you can, because it's very challenging. When you're in the water, you're in the water, you feel so peaceful. You come into your real life and schedules and calls and kids and all of that. But if you can bring that same mentality that you have in the water to your real life, there's so many lessons in surfing and in the water, like everything you're mentioning. If people can
Yeah.
bring 20% of that into their life, and especially surfing in Hawaii, it's like to the next level because people are already like so slowed down over there. Like everything is so chill and the music and the smell. I'm like, oh my goodness, it's like that way of life. That's why I can totally understand that addiction that once you're in the water in Hawaii, there's nothing that gets you out of it. Like you're a surfer for life.
Yeah, absolutely. And my husband and me have really learned the Zen art of just loving the entire experience of surfing, because you're not always going to get good waves. You
Yeah.
might paddle out and you could really, so that mindset of being curious. I wonder what today's going to be like. Maybe I'm just going to look at the birds and paddle around. Maybe there's big waves and anything's good. And just there's something also to be said for committing to ourselves on that level of non-negotiable self-care, radical self-care, where we just say this is a priority. And that's when I encourage all the women who come to me, find one thing that's non-negotiable. It doesn't need to be 20, and it might just be 5 minutes of meditation every day. It doesn't have to be an hour of surfing. But that
Hmm.
commitment, when I'm done, it's like, yay, me. I did something today for me. And now I can go fill my kids up, my husband, my patients, my clients.
I love that. This was so great, Lisa. I really appreciate you coming and sharing a story. There's so many lessons in your story, so many lessons. Like we could just have a whole hour on surfing and the lessons from surfing that you can apply to your real life.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. So I really appreciate you sharing. I hope everything is good with your health right now and it will continue because now you are on the right path.
Yes, thank you. This was so fun. And yes, there's a continuum. I go through
Yeah.
stress, we all do, but my health is much better. And thanks for asking. And this
Thank
was
you.
such a fun episode.
It was so much fun. And for everybody who's struggling and burned out or in a process, or if you feel like you're about to be burned, just reach out to Lisa, because there is no better mentor you can have than somebody who has gone through it and knows how you feel. It's always good when you feel like you're alone, you like nobody feels what you feel, and then you find somebody who's been in the exact same shoes. That's who you need to learn from. So tell us again your Instagram handle, or what is the best way to reach you? Is it your website or Instagram? How do people reach
Yes,
out to you?
thanks again. Yeah, so Instagram is Nurse Your Soul with Lisa, just like it sounds, the word spelled out, and that's my website, nurseyoursoulwithlisa.com. I also have a really great Facebook group called Surfing Through Burnout for high achieving women. And so that's a great place
Awesome.
for free resources and tips that I go and give. And I have different practices that I share that you can use.
Love it. I'll go check everything out. Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate your time. And thank you, everybody, for listening. And we'll be back with the next episode with somebody else who will share amazing story. But this one was probably the most aligned with what I'm trying to do with this podcast, because you did overcome something super challenging. And I love the way you live your life right now. So thank
Oh,
you once
thank
again.
you. Thanks for having me. This was
Thank you
fun.
so much. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you for listening to the Phoenix Podcast. We appreciate your support. We would not be here without you. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider sharing it with your friends or family members who might benefit from it as well. And please don't forget to leave us a review. We appreciate you, and we'll see you next time.